Not a good week for the news media as it goes to CBS News, who is pretty much solely responsible for starting this latest wave of hysteria about prescription opioids at the expense of people like me who need them to manage chronic pain.
Top Tens did a video about the opioid thing, and it was kind of cringeworthy because they were talking about it was a big problem. They said, did you know that America consumes 80% of the opioids in the world? And I'm like, what does that mean?
If that were about any other medicine and it were in a universal healthcare country, they would say, oh, see how great it is to get healthcare in these countries? But yeah, got to change the rhetoric. Well, this hysteria seems to have started with that 60 Minutes expose, which largely seems based on this CBS News story from August 1st, which is chock full of misinformation. They make this huge deal about widespread addiction and overdose death from opioids. But hey, I thought that was supposed to be reduced when Obama recategorized them as Schedule 2.
And the thing is, 90% of what people say about opioids, you can say about any over-the-counter drug. You can get addicted to aspirin, for Christ's sake.
Well, and if you just want to talk about deaths, acetaminophen is actually pretty bad. I mean, it's not addictive, but people, it's in headache medicine, it's in a lot of sinus medicines and cold medicines, and it is not good for your liver. But I mean, this is what we keep seeing. The war on drugs keeps having the opposite effect from the one intended.
Yeah, and that's another thing I also would like to say is that, look, even if what they're saying about opioids is true, let me ask you this. How is restricting it going to make the problem go away?
No, it's not. It's just going to make it worse.
Yeah, we know the dangers of heroin. Heroin is addicting, and it is really messed up, but people still do it, and it's illegal.
Well, they rely on Dr. Wilson Compton, Deputy Director for the U.S. National Institute on Drug Abuse, who said, quote, the proportion of adults who receive these medications in any year seemed startling to me. It's an awful lot of people who take these, mostly for medical purposes, but within that, a significant percentage end up misusing them. Remember that phrase, a significant percentage, because we'll go over the numbers a little later. He wants people to suffer instead. Quote, in many cases, physicians could write smaller prescriptions or avoid them completely for those who will benefit from ibuprofen or acetaminophen. Yeah, who cares about the fact that those aren't anywhere near as effective as opioids for pain relief?
Oh yeah, they always say well, why can't you use other medicines? This medicine works just as well and it's available. Well, maybe for you, but not for other people.
This is based on a study of 51,200 people covering the year 2015. Let's look at their own numbers, and remember, these are the numbers they're trying to use to scare you, right? 92 million Americans were prescribed opioids in 2015. 11.5 million misused them. But understand, misuse just means they took them without a doctor's prescription. 2/3 of them said that they were only doing this to relieve pain. And that's what happens when government strong-arms doctors to make them stop prescribing opioids. People suffering from chronic pain become so desperate for relief they turn to the black market.
Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't make it abuse by any definition any sane person would use.
In fact, one of the reasons why people take so many of those pills is because doctors are under a lot of pressure not to prescribe so many, and as a consequence, people will say, but that's not enough. I'm in severe chronic pain. I need more than that, so they end up taking more.
I'll be honest, I've honestly considered it just because it's so difficult to go through the whole rigmarole because you can't refill the prescription. You have to go and get it. But hey, on the dark web, I could just order them and they'll deliver them to my door. I mean, I haven't done it. But I mean, it is just so ridiculous going through this long, involved process to do it.
I actually posted that on a video one time that was criticizing opioids and all that, and I said, yeah, you see, the one or two people who were legitimately addicted, get better and treated, but what you don't see are the people who are in a forever state of constant pain because they can't get their medicine.
The number of Americans actually addicted to opioids is 1.9 million. 1.9 million out of 92 million prescribed users is about 2.1%. And by the way, that figure of addiction includes heroin, so the real percentage is somewhat lower. Most people who are prescribed opioids are never in any danger of becoming addicted to them.
Oh, yeah. It's pretty funny because they consider, you take a lot of pills because you're in so much pain that they consider that addiction, and well, it's not really.
Yeah, you're addicted to not being in pain. That's what you're addicted to.
Yeah, an addiction is a chemical dependency. That's where you have no legitimate need to take, whatever you're taking, but you do because you have this strong psychological need, but I need it so badly. That's what an addiction is.
Yeah. Now, if you follow their link to the deaths from prescription opioids, you'll see that they totaled 17,536 in 2015. That sounds like a lot, but in proportion to the number of people prescribed opioids, that's 0.019%. More people are killed by diabetes. More people are killed by the flu and pneumonia or arteriosclerosis. Far more people die of obesity-related illness. And heck, according to the British Medical Journal, you're 14 times as likely to be killed by a doctor making a mistake than to die of an overdose of prescription opioids.
Yeah. And going back to the whole obesity thing, one of the reasons why we see a lot of people with those things that cause chronic pain, obese, is not because they're lazy. It's because when you're in so much pain, you can't get up and walk,
Yeah, exercising is difficult when you're in pain.
Yeah.
I try my best, but I can't build up any kind of endurance or anything. There's just too much. And by the way, you're twice as likely to die from tripping over your own furniture. Yeah, so that's the thing. When we use their own numbers, these are the numbers used by the people trying to scare you. We see that the vast, overwhelming majority of people who are prescribed opioids never become addicted, and deaths from addiction are actually fairly rare by comparison to many other risks. I mean, if you're not screaming that everyone who can should get the flu vaccine, then you need to shut up about prescription opioid overdoses.
Yeah.
Because more people are dying from flu. And I'll say it again. Addiction is a symptom. People do not become addicted because they swallowed a pill. They become addicted because they have some underlying psychological or neurological issue driving the addiction.
Yep.
Here's what I want everyone to do, especially those who are participating in all this hysteria about it, and people like No Bullshit, who is normally a good YouTuber, but he, jumped on this bandwagon about it. I want all of you to please try to fathom pain that is there 24/7 and never stops. Can you try to just grok being in that situation and having the knowledge that, barring a medical advance, you will be in pain every single moment of every single day for the rest of your life?
Yeah, if you don't mind me asking, Shane, what was exactly the damage that in that car accident that actually caused you to feel permanent physical pain? Did you suffer some nervous system damage, or?
Well, it was pretty much all up and down my right side. I've got all sorts of hardware in my right arm and my right leg. And they also had to do things like cut out a piece of my hip to do a bone graft in my arm and stuff like that. And there's also just all sorts of just tissue damage and stuff like that that's just, you can't fix that. There's back surgery that they can do, but the side effects of the back surgery are even worse.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's just do what you can to manage the pain. I pretty much have a pretty good quality of life. I have pretty much a normal range of motion, and I can pretty much get up and do what I need to get done. But, man, the opioids help. They take my pain down from a 6 down to a 2. You just have no idea if you haven't been through that. You have no idea. And really what you have to imagine is that not even with the opioids do we ever get completely out of pain. It just becomes low enough that we can deal with it a little better.
Yeah.
And that's really all we're wanting here.
I don't want to sound like I'm blaming, the patient and all that, but, a biggest problem that people fail to realize is that they just don't trust their doctor, and they love portraying doctors as these corrupt guys who only care about money and all that, but most doctors have your good intention in mind,
Well, it's fake news. They're trying to get clicks. They're trying to get views. They're trying to get ad dollars. And this infuriates me. It really makes my blood boil. CBS is fake news. And this whole panic about opioids and the continued oppression of chronic pain sufferers is almost entirely their fault.